Porsche has subtly updated its entry-level 911, the Carrera. The flat 6 engine lacks the T-hybrid tech you pay more for on the GTS model, but it now develops more power, 394 PS, and has bigger brakes and rear-wheel steering. Plus, you get a lightly evolved exterior look and a more digitalised cabin. A base Porsche 911 Carrera is probably all the sports car you'll never need, especially in this updated form. Here, we're going to tell you why. There's long been quite a debate as to what is the sweet spot in the 911 range. Prior to this 992.2 update, most agreed that this lay with the mid-level GTS model, but that's become extremely expensive and in its latest T-hybrid guise, possibly needlessly powerful. So customers for this iconic model line might well now be tempted to turn to a base variant with the now uprated 394 PS version of the usual classic 3-litre flat 6 out back. There are actually two, both only rear driven. Either the enthusiast-orientated 911T, which we've tried and liked, or the simplest entry point to 911 ownership, the straightforward Carrera model, which is what we're going to drive here. Introduced in mid-2024, this car, like the slightly faster 480 PS Carrera-S model that you might want to consider alongside it, inhabits a very different market to the one the original 992 era design was launched into back in 2019. Back then, there were a whole range of super sports car alternatives at this car's price and power point, like Nissan's GT-R, Jaguar's F-Type R, and lower rung versions of the Audi R8 and the Aston Martin Vantage. But all those cars are now either gone or have been repositioned at a much higher price point. Yet Zuffenhausen still needs this car to be at the very top of its game. The key rival that remains, the Mercedes-AMG GT, was rejuvenated in 2023 and in base rear-driven 43 form has set its sights firmly on Carrera customers, who look likely to be offered this 992 era design for some years yet, as Porsche endlessly debates the possibly electric future of the 911 model line. So does this car still have what it takes to be the defining face of Porsche? For the answer, you're going to need the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test. So, to the 911 experience. Quite simply, there's no other car in the world that makes us feel as confident behind the wheel. It could be down to the ideal driving position, the perfectly supportive seat, or the way that the extremities of the car are so easy to place, despite the fact that this 992 series model places you 5mm lower to the tarmac than the last generation 991 series model did. Or it could be a combination of all that, mixed with the adrenaline that goes with the drive in any legendary sports car. Now, we've tested almost every generation of 911, and each time we try a new one, there's the same sense of excitement and adrenaline from the moment the flat 6 out back is gunned into action, something now done in this updated 992.2 model with the press of a button rather than the previous twist of a fascia switch. There's still that guttural flat 6 roar that flares briefly, then settles down into the usual pulsing beat. You ready to go? Very quickly as it happens, even though this base Carrera doesn't get the T-hybrid technology that, as part of the 992.2 update, has so dramatically boosted the power output of the mid-level GTS variant to 541 PS. We'll cover that car for you separately. This Carrera gets a much more modest 9 PS power upgrade thanks to its twin-turbo 3-litre flat 6, gaining turbos from the old GTS and a charge cooler from the top 911 turbo. That hasn't affected this base engine's 450 Nm torque output, but it has boosted power to 394 PS, enough to keep this Carrera somewhere close to the 427 PS figure of its closest market rival, the Mercedes-AMG GT43. Despite the power deficit, it feels faster than its Stuttgart competitor, not surprisingly because it's nearly half a ton lighter. Rest to 62 miles an hour occupies 4.1 seconds, and this Zuffenhausen sports car wouldn't let up until it reached 183 miles an hour, were you to be on the main straight at Silverstone or the Nürburgring, or perhaps, rather bravely, on a de-restricted autobahn. As part of the 992.2 updates, bigger brakes are being added. They're even more arresting than the previous very effective 4-piston setup. And Porsche now also includes a standard rear-wheel steering system to aid cornering stability and usefully reduce the turning circle at parking speeds by half a metre to 10.6 metres, something you'll appreciate when manoeuvring in packed city streets. As ever, two things define 911 ownership: that classic shape and the glorious howl that you get from the flat-six boxer motor out back. You could perhaps argue whether this engine really has the mid-range, spine-tingling character you'd want from a 911, but be in no doubt, the super sports car's genes are very much in there. When the time is right, the road opens up and you're able to plant your right foot, the car simply lunges forward towards the horizon. The flat six isn't brash like an AMG V8 or shrill when revving out like an Italian V8, but it certainly serves up plenty of orchestral fireworks, embellishing your progress with whooshing turbines, fluttering wastegates and sonorous roars. But you only get all that when you really want it. This isn't one of those engines that's always trying to remind you of its prodigious power. With so much low and mid-range torque from this power plant, you can drive it as lazily as you like. 2/3 of peak torque is accessible from just 1500 RPM, and maximum pulling power is available from 2000 RPM. As a result, no super sports car is more usable for those many occasions that you won't want to drive it like a super sports car, helped by the fact that you sit higher than you would in a rival model and visibility is much better. A perfect accompaniment to all of this is the sweet-shifting 8-speed PDK auto gearbox with its expertly judged ratios and cool, lovely metal steering wheel paddle shifters. That's a transmission conditional for ownership of both this Carrera and its even more sprightly 480 PS Carrera S sibling. Porsche now restricts availability of its manual stick shift, which now has 6 rather than 7 speeds, to the more enthusiast-orientated 911T, which shares this base Carrera's 394 PS engine and is another variant that we've covered separately. As previously, the selection of drive modes includes a wet setting that senses excess road surface spray and can adapt the handling for slippery conditions. As usual, the other settings are normal, sport and sport plus, with further normal or sport modes for the now standard PASM Porsche Adaptive Suspension Management System. Decide on your preferred driving and damping parameters with or without the tonal accompaniment of the near essential optional sports exhaust that we have here, and you can save these settings into a one-touch button below the center screen. Specify another near essential option, the Sport Chrono package, a necessary addition if you're to get the excellent launch control system. And this further red button in the center of the steering wheel mounted drive mode dial primes the engine and gearbox for up to 20 seconds of maximum acceleration should you need it. As before, there's an adaptive rear spoiler that deploys at 56 miles an hour into the first of 3 positions that aim to keep the rear of the car pinned to the tarmac, which, given this car's heavy rear weight bias, is reassuring during high-speed cornering if, as here, your car isn't aided by the kind of four-wheel drive system that, from the launch of this 992.2 series model and at the time of this test, Porsche was refusing to offer on a 911 at Carrera level. All Carreras do, though, get PTV, Porsche Torque Vectoring, which aids traction by selectively braking the inside rear wheel at speed through sharp bends. Drive like this, and as always, this 911 feels uniquely centre pivoted, responding to wheel and pedal movements with an immediacy that's just that bit more driver-centric than it is with rivals. You feel a greater sense of confidence and control, particularly right at the edge of adhesion, and the whole experience is just as complete and satisfying as it's always been. Unfortunately, at Carrera level, Porsche doesn't offer the option of its PDCC or Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control active roll compensation system. Of course, you won't always be wanting to throw this car about. Town travel can be aided by two useful options: a pricey front axle lift system that raises the nose of the car by 40 millimeters at speeds of up to 21 miles an hour to help you clear speed bumps more easily, and the Power Steering Plus option that offers a variable low-speed ratio for easier parking and manoeuvring. What about highway use? Well, cruising progress isn't quite as refined as you might hope, even with this test car's optional lightweight, noise-insulated glass fitted. Other rivals still do the whole GT thing better and more quietly, if that's ultimately all you really want, and offer a wider range of semi-autonomous drive features too, a portfolio that Porsche has neglected to embellish as part of this update. The whole point, though, of a 911 lies in the enjoyment, not the automation of the driving experience. Try one and you begin to understand just why this Porsche has such a following. There's a feeling of involvement on offer here, only otherwise delivered by the kind of uncompromising track-orientated sports car you couldn't use every day. This model is superb on a circuit too, but unlike most rivals, it's equally at home if all that's required is collection of your dry cleaning. Time and again, brand enthusiasts have worried that necessary changes would dilute the 911 experience. The switch to water-cooled engines in 1998, the move to electric steering in 2012, the adoption of twin-turbo technology for Carrera models in 2015. None of it, though, changed the essential appeal of this car, and hopefully nothing ever will. It's easy to assume the styling team for the 911 has the easiest job in the world. After all, essentially the same shape has been used ever since the car was originally launched back in 1963. And that continuity is a big part of its appeal. Actually, the 911 has changed hugely over the decades. This current 992 era model is a huge 229 millimeters longer than the 60s original, while also being 20 millimeters longer and 45 millimeters wider at the front than its pre-2019 era 991 series predecessor. This is, in other words, no longer the compact, darty little sports car you might remember admiring when you were growing up. And whether you like it in this coupe form or as a cabriolet or even in its Targa body style, the truth is that it hasn't been for some time. It's still smaller than some of its rivals though, as you might notice from a profile perspective if you happen upon this Porsche at a gathering of luxury GT super sports cars. This particular model being 141 millimeters shorter than a McLaren GTS and 186 millimeters shorter than a Mercedes-AMG GT. You'd know the classic silhouette at a glance, of course, and it hasn't changed as part of this mid-term 992 update. So, as before, there's a real purity of form between large arches that house staggered rim sizes front to rear. You've either 19 or 20-inch alloys at the front with either 20 or 21 inches at the rear. We've got the larger rim options here. Choose the alternative cabriolet body style and the silhouette is much different, embellished with a canvas hood that can be raised or lowered in only 12 seconds. For the visual differences with this 992.2 update, you've to start at the front, where a brand loyalist will immediately notice that the previous slim front driving lights are gone. All light functions now sit within these LED headlamps with their characteristic 4-point graphic, which now gains standard matrix tech. Losing those extra lights has made it possible to add larger cooling vents around the model-specific bumper, which retains horizontally split front intakes rather than the vertical ones of the hybrid GTS. There are more detail differences at the back, where this redesigned light strip with an integrated arc and Porsche logo is intended to make the tail appear deeper and impart a purposeful stance. If you owned the earlier version of this 992 design, you might also notice that the number plate is now positioned higher within this clearly structured rear bumper. This rear grille panel has been redesigned too, with 5 fins per side. It visually connects to the rear window to form a graphic unit that fades into the retractable spoiler below. As before, that spoiler rises at above 56 miles an hour into the first of 3 positions that depend on the driving situation and your chosen driving mode. From back here, you'll also be able to visually determine the 911 model in question's exhaust status. These 2 oval outlets designate the fitment of the optional sports exhaust. The standard system has 2 double tailpipes. Now, arguably more important than any of this is what these days lies beneath the voluptuous panel work. It seems strange to remember that as recently as the 997 series model just 2 generations ago, 911s were completely crafted from old-fashioned galvanised steel. Today, apart from the front and rear aprons, the outer skin is entirely made of aluminium. Enough. We may have had to drill down into the detail to cover the exterior updates to this car, but even someone with a mere passing acquaintance with 911 models will be able to appreciate the changes made to the cabin, which power-operated door handles spring out to allow you to enter. For the first time, the 911 has a fully digital instrument cluster. We'll take a closer look at its many formats in a moment, but even though a rev counter can remain its central format, you might think it a shame that the classic analogue tachometer is no more, and that the old starter switch has been replaced by the kind of button everyone else uses. Otherwise, everything is much as it was before, in an interior that still feels luxurious, contemporary, and nicely understated. Before this generation of 911, the cabin design wasn't quite smart enough to interest someone wanting a 6-figure super sports car. Now there's no question of this interior's expensive credentials. The ambience all double-stitched leather, beautiful workmanship, and faultless fit and finish. As usual in a 911, you sit low and snug, thankful for the faultless ergonomics and the perfect positioning of the thin 3-spoke Porsche crested wheel, to which this drive mode dial is now fitted as standard. You'll still need to pay extra for the sports response button on it though. That primes the engine and gearbox for maximum acceleration. And of course, Zuffenhausen can't resist charging you more for this dash-top sport chrono stopwatch, which we've never seen a 911 without. It's good to see that a proper gear shift lever's been retained rather than the Taycan-sourced fascia-mounted selector that almost every one of the brand's other models seem to use these days. We mentioned this 12.6-inch curved driver's display, the installation of which opens up the opportunity to show full-screen mapping, one of a wide variety of selectable layouts that also include a classic format inspired by the traditional 5-tube Porsche dial design with a central tachometer. That rev counter can be replaced by mapping or a drive assist graphic, or you can stay with the rev counter and have it flanked by either single outer dial spaces or configurable data. On the left, readouts for tyre pressures, G-meter data, or an analog speedometer, while on the right, you have options to choose nav settings, trip info, a lap timer, your radio selection, engine temperatures, or a rather interesting power curve graphic. As before, infotainment is still taken care of by this nicely integrated 10.9-inch Porsche Communications Management Central screen. But this monitor now offers more customization options for drive modes and driver assistance systems, plus there are lots of new connectivity features including video streaming, along with the usual weather and news reports, and a Sport Chrono lap timing section if you've ticked the box for that feature. As is the current trend, the home screen can display either with customizable widgets, phone, radio and mapping here for instance, or if you swipe left with rows of little icons. and shortcut nav, music and media options reside on this monitor's right hand frame, along with the car section that allows you to configure drive modes, chassis settings, the sports exhaust note and the position of the rear spoiler, all of it delivered with glorious graphical clarity. Once you've dialed in your preferences, you can gain a one-touch access to the drive package you put together by using the button provided as part of the row of 5 smart toggle switches that sit below the instrument screen and feature a lovely knurled metal finish. What else? Well, the seats have a wide base cushion that's particularly supportive and feel even better if you're able to upgrade to the 14-way, or as in this case 18-way power adjustment packages that Porsche wants to sell you. These chairs slide back a long way, there are perfectly placed pedals, it's all good. As always in 911, all-round visibility is of a completely different order to anything you'd find in any other super sports car. The classically distinctive bulges around the headlamps give you a clear idea as to where the front wheels are, which makes car park manoeuvring considerably easier than it would be in a lower slung rival. Slim windscreen pillars mean your front three-quarter view isn't impeded at junctions, and even your rearward perspective is good, better in fact, than on some family hatches, thanks to the deep rear window that allows you to place the back of the car accurately. It all means that the kind of surround view camera system that's virtually obligatory to avoid expensive urban scrapes on direct rivals isn't really necessary on a 911, though we've got it here along with a standard fit set of all-round parking sensors. And practicality? Well, as part of this 992.2 update, Porsche has built a wireless phone charger into this lidded box between the seats, a cooled area which also accommodates a pair of USB-C ports. Otherwise, though, cabin storage space is somewhat limited, as you would expect it to be in a sports car. The two-part door pockets are still so narrow as to only be any good for the storage of things you've recently run over, but there's a reasonably sized glove box and along with ticket clips on the sun visors. For cups, we'd like to have seen a better solution than this rather ugly single holder inserted between the seats, which gets in the way of the electronic handbrake switch. To avoid that, you can pull it out and replace it with a provided insertable cubby compartment. As before, a further pull-out cup holder is hidden away on the passenger side of the dashboard. With most rival supersports cars, Aston Martin's Vantage, the Mercedes-AMG GT and McLaren's GTS for instance, this is where we'd be finishing our tour of the cabin. But the 911 has its reputation as the most practical model in its class to uphold, hence the continued availability of 2 small rear seats, though these days you have to specify them as an option. Surprisingly, Porsche doesn't charge any extra for the privilege. You tug on this lovely little stitched seat side strap to pull forward the seat back, but you then have to manually slide the seat forward if you're to gain admittance. And once inside, well, it's predictably very cramped back here, but you'd put up with it in preference to a rainy walk back from the pub, and 2 small children would be fine over relatively short distances. Porsche has redesigned these rear pews in recent years with a wider seat cushion and a backrest that's 20mm higher, but they still leave you in an uncomfortably upright position, and of course there's next to no legroom. Still, you could barter with folk up front to help you there. Not much can be done, though, about the crippling lack of headroom, as you can see. As an adult sat back here, you'd have to be very short indeed to avoid bashing your head against the roof lining. All of which means that you'll mainly be pressing these rear chairs into service for the carriage of jackets and designer shopping bags. Or kids, of course. If it's your weekend to have the grandchildren, you'll be pleased to find that a child's seat will just about fit into the Isofix mountings provided either side of this transmission tunnel. The seat backs split and fold down flat, allowing you to easily carry longer items of luggage, a set of golf clubs for instance. Having this extra space for potential bag stowage is important, given that, as with any super sports car, trunk space is at a bit of a premium. The mid-engine configuration of Porsche's old 718 Boxster and Cayman models freed up space for a rear boot compartment, but of course with this twin-turbo 3-litre 6 slung out the back here, you don't get that with a 911. Just this little flap that rises to reveal an engine plaque and access to various service reservoirs. That means anything you can't fit inside, therefore, has to go in this compartment beneath the sculpted bonnet. This front-mounted boot will be 132 litres in size, regardless of your chosen 911's rear-driven or four-wheel drive status. That's a pitiful figure that, of course, will be easily beaten by a front-engined rival like a Vantage or an AMG GT. Still, at least this area is at least quite deep, which means that it's large enough to swallow a typical carry-on flight case, perhaps a couple of softer bags, or maybe the proceeds from a mid-level supermarket excursion. Plus, loading is easy because the nose is quite low. Tucked into this LED lit space is an emergency warning triangle and a get you home puncture repair kit. Ultimately though, you can't really make the most of what's on offer here unless you pay extra for the tailored 911 luggage set. At the time of this test in early 2025, 911 Carrera pricing started at around £100,000 for this base 394 PS coupe version. Quite a rise from the £83,000 starting price point that applied when we first tested this 992 series design back in 2019, when this base Carrera had 385 PS. The more focused 911T model, also with 394 PS, and the only 911 that can be had with manual transmission, cost from just over £111,000 as we filmed. And the faster 480 PS Carrera-S was priced from launch in 992.2 era form from around £120,000. Allow another £10,000 in each case if you want the cabriolet body shape rather than this coupe. There's no four-wheel drive option at this end of the range. For that, you have to graduate up to the mid-level GTS derivatives, which at the time of this review were priced from just over £132,000 upwards, and also included the further option of the third glass-roofed Targa body style. As we remarked at the very beginning of this review, many of the cars this 992 era 911 Carrera competed against at its original launch have now vanished from this market segment. But the Mercedes AMG GT remains, though only in coupe form, where in base 427 PS rear-driven 43 guise, it costs only around £1,700 more than this Carrera. All the other super sports cars you might once have considered here, say Aston Martin's Vantage, the McLaren GTS, and still on sale at the time of this test, the Audi R8, are now way over this 911's price point, even if you consider it in Carrera-S form. If you're prepared to consider something that isn't really a super sports car, but which compensates by offering more power, then much the same kind of spend as is required here would get you cars like the BMW M4 CS and the Mercedes-AMG CLE 63 4MATIC Plus. As we've said, this 911 Carrera's base price point is now a six-figure one. Though to be fair to Porsche though, the 2019 era £83,000 asking price is equivalent to £102,000 today, so perhaps the asking figure isn't such bad value after all, particularly if you factor in the spec improvements the brand has made to this car as part of this midterm 992.2 update. Rear-wheel steering and the PASM Porsche Adaptive Suspension Management System are now standard 911 features, for instance, as are matrix LED headlamps featuring more than 32,000 light points. Their high-performance high beam illuminates the road to a distance of more than 600 metres and offers innovative additional functions such as driving mode dependent dynamic cornering light, lane brightening, a construction site and bottleneck light, and a non-dazzling high beam that is precise to the pixel. Inside, the brand's steering wheel mounted drive mode dial is now standard, and as we told you in our design section, the car now benefits from a fully digital instrument display. But that still leaves plenty of scope, of course, for paying a small fortune in optional extras. Before you go box ticking on this Carrera model, we'd counsel you to first take a look at whether the 911T variant we mentioned earlier might suit your needs better. This does, after all, come already fitted with key features that would cost extra on a Carrera, like a sports exhaust, torque vectoring and PASM lowered suspension. In addition, there's the brand's Sport Chrono package, including the usual dash-top mounted stopwatch, a sports response button on the drive mode dial, the Porsche Track Precision app, and a tyre temperature display. With that taken into account, you're ready for an expensive spell on the Porsche configurator. This test Carrera has many of the items you'll probably want, as well as the Sports Chrono package and the Sports Exhaust system, which you'll probably harm residuals if you do without. It has a powered sunroof, the desirable Burmester high-end surround sound audio upgrade, a surround view camera system with active parking support, a heated GT Sports steering wheel, and an HD upgrade for the Matrix LED headlamps. You're also probably going to want the wheel size upgrade from 19 and 20 inch rims to the 20 and 21 inch alloys we have here, and probably a powered seat enhancement package. There are 4-way, 14-way, or as in this case, 18-way adjustment options. We've got rear seats here too. There's no cost for that, but don't forget you have to now tell Porsche if you want it. A rear wiper costs extra too, as does comfort access keyless entry, and this car has the extra cost lightweight noise insulated glass fitted. If you've more to spend, we'd suggest you consider driving stuff first. We've got adaptive cruise control fitted here, but to go further and get that system functioning with the kind of semi-autonomous drive camera features now routinely fitted to luxury cars in this segment, you'll need to pay extra for Porsche's expensive inner drive package. If you're urban based, the front axle lifting system for easing you over speed humps, the remote park assist arrangement, and the Power Steering Plus setup for lighter parking speed wheel twirling might all be good investments. Additional luxury features include rear privacy glass and night view assist. Inside you could add seat ventilation, an ionizer, and if you can't stretch to the pricey top 915 watt 13 speaker Burmester audio upgrade package we've got here, there's a much more affordable interim Bose system with 12 speakers and 570 watts. Remember that unless you order your 911 in solid white or black, you'll be paying Porsche a lot more for your choice of paint colour too, over £1,000 more in the case of the GT silver metallic finish we have here. Consider all of this before you start spending big on aesthetics, as of course is easily possible. This test car has a leather interior package with light silver accents, two-tone leather upholstery, and the Porsche crest on the headrests. But of course you can go a lot further than that, both inside and out. Some of the trimming options though can be somewhat garish and won't help your residuals. On to safety. Porsche's never been particularly generous in this regard, but has had to start building a lot more camera features in as part of this generation to preserve a sensible Euro NCAP safety rating status. There's a warn and brake assist autonomous braking system with distance warning, lane keeping assist, lane departure warning, a motorway light assistant, a brake recommendation system, and of course acoustic speed warning. The Porsche 2X hazard warning setup advises you in advance about local hazards. Proactive occupant protection prepares the cabin for an impact if a crash is deemed inevitable, and a wet detector notifies you when a wet surface is detected. This car also has the optional lane change assist feature fitted. What about the basic safety stuff? Well, all mainstream 911 models come, of course, with twin front, side and curtain airbags integrated as part of the Porsche side impact protection system. You also get tyre pressure monitoring along with the usual braking aids. And of course, there's the best stability system in the business, PSM, Porsche Stability Management Traction Control, which includes an extra PSM Sport setting, which allows the driver to throw the car around a little more without intervention, yet keeps a safety net in place should ambition get the better of your talent. There's also a post-collision braking system that will automatically brake the car after you've hit something, helping to prevent further impacts. Isofix child seat mounts are fitted to both rear seats if you specified them, but getting an Isofix fastening fitted to the front passenger seat will cost you extra. The 911 has long led its class in terms of running cost efficiency, and not much has changed. A base 394 PS Carrera Coupe manages up to 28 miles to the gallon on the WLTP combined cycle and 229 grams per kilometre of WLTP rated CO2. The figures won't vary too much from that if you go for the Cabriolet body style, but they do fall slightly with the identically engined Carrera T, which in coupe form records 26.9 miles to the gallon and 237 grams per kilometre. But strangely, they recover a bit with the more powerful 480 PS Carrera S, which as a coupe records 27.4 mpg and 233 grams per kilometre. If you want some segment perspective, we'll tell you that this Carrera model's closest rival, the Mercedes-AMG GT43, records 27.4 mpg and 235 grams per kilometre. Whatever Carrera-series model you choose, the 67-litre fuel tank might easily take you over 500 miles between fill-ups, helped by the engine's clever VarioCam Plus variable valve control system, and by the fact that, as before, the PDK Auto gearbox can disconnect itself from the drivetrain when you're coasting at cruising speeds to aid efficiency. All 911 models are covered by the brand's usual 3-year unlimited mileage warranty package. And the 911 also has 12 years of corrosion cover and a 3-year paint guarantee. Insurance for a car of this power and performance is never going to be cheap. All 911 variants attract a top-of-the-shop Group 50 rating. Still, residual value percentages are uber high, think in the late 50s after 3 years of ownership or better. Bear in mind that depreciation will take a hit if you load your car up with too many unnecessary pricey extras. And of course, showboating on track days will cost you big in rubber wear. The bespoke Pirelli tyres are fearsomely expensive to replace. There's a wider dealer network than many rivals can offer, and you'll only need to visit your local Porsche centre every 2 years or every 20,000 miles, whichever comes first. There's no option to buy into a prepaid servicing package at point of purchase, but the brand does provide a fixed price servicing approach that makes sure you'll know in advance exactly what work will be carried out and what it will cost. The 911. Whether you've a classic model or this updated version of the 8th generation 992 series design, it's an automotive icon that's globally loved. Which is why, though this improved model has been usefully updated, Porsche hasn't messed with the fundamental formula. In other words, if, like us, you've always loved this car, then you'll love this one. There are surely lots of reasons to. The improved 6-cylinder twin-turbo used in this Carrera-series is efficient, yet sonorous and gloriously tractable. Do you really need more 911 than this? Probably not. As with the pricier models, the cabin's more up-to-date and the infotainment's been brought up to scratch. In addition, like all its predecessors, this 911 is practical and easy to use and remains satisfying to drive in a way that rivals can't quite match. In summary, what we have here is a worthy evolution of the world's longest running sports car dynasty. Porsche is banking on the fact that the excellence of this 911 will help to simplify the decision over whether to commit to the significant outlay involved in buying it. If over half a century of development has taught us anything, it's that you wouldn't bet against them succeeding in doing just that.
you.